So welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a nice lunch and a good rest. One thing that Ayurveda recommends after a meal is to take a break, to take a short rest after having eaten before jumping back into other activities. And one thing that you could think about doing, if it's not something that's intuitive already or something that your body calls for, is to take a walk, take a digestive walk. Minimum 100 steps, 1,000 is a good. It can become meditative if you count, but that's one way of enhancing your digestive function by walking. The legs are associated with the colon and also with the stomach. And so by walking, we help digestion. Another thing that you can do, and especially in the springtime, I alluded quite quickly this morning to each season having corresponding organs that need a little more love and attending to. And in the spring, it's liver, a gallbladder, and the lymphatic system. And one thing we can do after a meal to enhance digestion, and this is very easy to do. You just have to think about doing it. It's helpful to relax the liver so that it assists better in its digestive process. That's to put cold water in your mouth and hold it there. Keep your eyes nice and open, and then splash your eyes 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and with cold water. And it's a way of, again, relaxing the liver and helping with digestion. So those are two digestive tips for you. And a third one would be to rub your belly in the direction of a clockwise fashion, and I'll show you. It might look different on the screen backwards, but you go towards, from using your right hand towards the left and then down and around. And you can use both hands, and feel free to do this with me. You can do this 54 times. And why 54? Because every number is sacred. And 54 is a good number, a sacred number. When you add 5 and 4, it's 9. 9 divides by 3, and 3 is a holy number, as in many traditions. So massaging the belly in this way, we're not doing a deep massage. At the same time, it's not superficial. It's somewhere between the two. And in fact, we are just following the natural course of the way food moves through our system, clockwise from the ascending colon, transverse colon, and descending colon. So this is something that you can do to assist the digestive function. And the last tip of many I could potentially give you, but I want to give you things that are digestible and doable. For those people who feel like taking a nap after a meal, Ayurveda wouldn't be so much for sleeping, but relaxing is a good idea. The body, the digestive system is part of our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest system. And if we rest a little bit after a meal, we have more chances to digest rather than turning on the sympathetic nervous system, which is more of our action mode. It's more difficult to digest. And so even though the Ayurveda says it's best not to sleep after a meal because that makes us sluggish and lethargic and is not very helpful for digestion, lying on your left side for 10 minutes would be acceptable. So why lie on your left side? Because it helps the digestive process. It helps the food move through the stomach towards the duodenum, towards the small intestine, and further on down the line, if you lie on your left side. And this is especially a tip that you might think about if you've eaten late at night and you go to sleep soon after having eaten, although Ayurveda suggests that you leave a gap of 2 hours, 3 is even better, between the end of your evening meal and the time you go to bed, simply because in that way you're not creating a digestive war or a war between different systems of the body. When we go to sleep, it's the our nervous system that needs to take a rest. And if our nervous system is has competition with the digestive system, then we won't sleep as well. We might get up kind of grumpy and not in a good mood. So try to leave 2 to 3 hours between your evening meal and the time you go to bed. And if you eat too close to the time you go to bed, and that's just how it is, try to make it not so much a habit, but an exception, and lie on your left side as you go to sleep. And the other thing would be to bring in one of those teas we made this morning, CCF or ginger tea, before you go to bed to help with digestion. Okay, on we go. I want to go back to something we started talking about this morning, and that was toxins in the system. And when we start to talk about toxins, sometimes people get a little panicky. They think, oh no, I have something very wrong with me. But just know that toxins in the system, when we recognize them, they're kind of just a little gentle reminder that something isn't as good as it could be. And if we notice that things are off, it's best to take action sooner than later. The sooner we take action, then the easier it is to remedy. I want to pick up then again on what are some of the signs of Amma or toxins? Do I have toxins in my system? And I want to show you a document that I'm going to share. Hopefully everyone can see. It's a good. Can everyone see what I have on the screen? Yes, no, maybe, yeah. Signs of Amma, can you see that? Can someone give me a hands up if they see what I have on this? Thank you, Jamyang. Okay, so ways to know if you have toxins in your body. When you look at your tongue in the morning, and not everybody does, but one Ayurvedic ritual is to scrape the tongue with a tongue scraper in the morning after having or before brushing your teeth. And why do we do that? We do that to stimulate the digestive organs, but also to take off any coating that might be on the tongue. And what is this coating? It's actually a manifestation of things that your stomach hasn't digested in the night. Now, say you've eaten some cheese or something heavy, a pizza, a heavy meat before you go to bed, and you see a white coating on your tongue in the morning. It's probably because you ate food that was too heavy before you went to bed and you didn't have the digestive capacity you needed to digest it. So there might be this coating on your tongue. And it's simply a sign that there's something that's not been digested. When the coating is really thick, then you need to pay attention because you need to take action rather soon to help your digestive fire burn up those toxins. So that's something to pay attention to. If you have chronic inflammation in your joints, in your digestive tract, in your skin, that's a presence of toxins or Amma. Depression, and I'm not talking just about seasonal depression, but a depression even when there's sunshine 365 days a year and you don't understand why because everything else is going good. So think about the relationship between your digestion and your mental health. If you lack clarity, you feel foggy, you can't make decisions, that's also a sign of toxins. Pain in your joints, waking up in the morning and being grumpy or being in a bad mood or just kind of a general grumpiness. People who are constantly tired, they have chronic fatigue, they don't have any energy, they're exhausted all the time, presence of Amma or toxins. Can't get up in the morning, you just want to stay in bed. That could be depression, but depression's linked to toxins, we'll see as well. So think about that. Low immunity, you're getting sick all the time, or you're susceptible to infections or catching whatever comes your way. So the more we strengthen our digestion, the fewer toxins we'll have and the better our immune system will be. And then anybody who has poor digestion, sluggishness, you're not hungry, gas, bloating, constipation or diarrhea, acid reflux, your digestion is incomplete. For example, between meals, you have a burp, and the burp that comes up tastes like the food from the previous meal. So that's incomplete digestion. Other things, signs of poor digestion would be, like I said, acidity, and something else came to my mind, but I forgot, it doesn't matter. So that's sign of presence of toxins. And also in the springtime, we can see the manifestation of toxins in our system with colds and coughs and allergies, congestion, mucus, runny nose. And depending on how long these things last or how easy it is to remedy them, kind of tells us the seriousness or not of toxins. So what can we do to remedy? Well, Ayurveda has this nice concept of dipana and pachana. And go ahead and repeat those words if you'd like to, those Sanskrit words, dipana, which means to kindle the metabolism or increase digestive fire or turn up the metabolism. And the other concept is pachana. Pachana means to enhance your digestion in order to break down toxins or amma. And how do we do this according to Ayurveda? And these are just a few ideas amongst many. One thing you can do is to rev up your metabolism. Now, revving up your metabolism means basically just to improve your digestive capacity. And how do we do that? Well, we eat foods that are according to the season, what nature gives us. We eat the tastes that are associated with the season, and we'll talk about that this afternoon. We'll eat maybe the qualities that are opposite the qualities that we're experiencing in our body. Revving up our metabolism also means eat at the right times of the day, or maximize the times of the day when your digestive fire is working at its best, especially at noon or the lunch hour, and eating less at night. Those are a couple ideas of how you can rev up your metabolism. Also, some of the things I shared this morning, the ginger tea, the ginger appetizer, are ways of stimulating your metabolism. Basically, any spice, the role of spices in Ayurveda is not only to give taste to your foods, but also to stimulate digestive enzymes and help in the digestive process. Another thing to do this dipana and pachana is to eliminate the causes. Can you pinpoint what is aggravating, or what kind of foods cause disease or cause imbalance, and take them out of your diet? Remembering the law of attraction, that the more we are attracted to, or the more we accumulate things that are similar in nature, the more we create imbalance. So try to recognize the foods that aggravate and take them out of your diet, at least for 10 days or 2 weeks. And then once you've had kind of an unlimited diet, you can start putting those things back in and see if they still cause problems, or if your system has had a rest from them and now can accept them. Take a digestive rest. This is one of the best ways of rekindling your digestive flames, which could mean skip a meal. If you're not hungry, don't eat. That's a way of reboosting your digestion. This is a way of resetting your digestive flames. You could also do a detox, do a mono diet or a mono fast. And this afternoon, I'd like to share with you a soup made from mung beans that is particularly a good soup you could eat for a whole day, lunch or breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as a way of resetting your digestion and reducing toxins in your system. There's another concept called intermittent fasting, which is a big buzzword, or it's really in style these days. And what does that mean exactly? It basically means to give your body a digestive rest for a minimum of 10 hours, even 12 or 15 if you can. And why would we do this? Well, one reason is it resets your digestion. But the second thing is that the way that it resets your digestion is that certain functions in the body can't do their job while they're digesting. So if you take a break from digesting, meaning you take a break from putting things in your body, then those functions can do their work without interference. And notably, the work that's done in the small intestine and also in the colon, this is where a lot of hormones are produced, and a lot of different substances like melatonin and serotonin, all of those good mood hormones and hormones that help us to sleep, different things like that, they can only be produced by the body when we aren't digesting. So if we're eating all the time or eating too much, or really taxing our digestive system, then those hormones or those substances can't be produced. So that's another motivation for doing that. And then for people who have weight issues, it's an excellent way, even if you don't change anything else to your diet, just to do an intermittent fast where you take a long break from food before eating again. And also people who have a hard time understanding real hunger. This is a great way of understanding hunger. So how do you do it? For example, you might say, all right, I'm going to kind of take a shift in my times of eating. I might eat earlier in the night or in the evening, say 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whereas in the past I might have eaten at 8 or 9. And then once that meal is over, I won't eat again until 10 hours, 12 hours, or 15 hours later, which could mean even skipping breakfast if you're not really hungry. Or you could actually just eat at your normal time at night and skip breakfast altogether and make your first meal of the day lunch. So there are different ways of doing it, but the idea is that in intermittent fasting, which is not for everybody, I'm not saying that it's a must, but it's something that you could try, especially in the spring, at least maybe one day a week to see what it does for you. In my experience, it helps digestion a lot. It brings a lot of mental clarity. I'm able to eat some foods better now that I haven't been able to eat in the past, because I was able to repair certain parts of my digestion that got a little sluggish because I didn't give enough rest. So that's something that you might want to consider doing. Also, in general, Ayurveda would suggest that we keep like 4 to 6 hours between meals, with a little bit of difference between breakfast and lunch. But if we leave those 4 to 6 hours between meals, our digestion can work at its optimal, and we won't tire our digestive system. Our organs won't get sluggish or lazy or give us problems. And which means in the interseason and also in spring, it's a good time of the year to not snack. What is snacking? Snacking is basically eating between meals. And when we snack, if our previous meal hasn't been fully digested, then we kind of create problems for our digestion. What happens is that we our stomach or our small intestine that was already in the digestive process stops what it was digesting, and it'll go to digest the new thing. But now what happens to what was digesting? It's all gonna sit there and wait. And when it sits and it waits, it starts to ferment. And when it starts to ferment, then it creates Amma, or toxins, and many digestive discomforts along the road. So the idea of not eating between meals, not snacking, gives the system a real chance to really and fully digest. Now, to know what real hunger is between a meal, sometimes we snack because we're appeasing an emotion, or we're nervous, or we're bored, or some kind of emotion has kind of rocked our boat, And one thing that's very easy to appease all of that is food. So when we go to eat, let's say, a cake or chocolate in the middle of the afternoon, to tell if it's real hunger or not, or if it's just out of boredom or emotions, we can ask ourselves, if I were to eat a vegetable dish, or if I were to eat a soup made of vegetables, or if I were to have something cooked and something like I had for lunch, would that speak to me as much as a cake would or a chocolate? So that gives us a chance of determining, is the hunger on the tongue just a hunger for something to appease my emotion, or is it a real hunger that's really going to nourish me? So that's just a little test you can use to determine if hunger is true or not. And so what Ayurveda would recommend in order to not want to snack between meals, let's say you haven't eaten enough, is to really understand your digestive capacity and eat enough without overeating so that you don't have to make a pit stop. What a pit stop means, you don't have to stop on your road and get some more fuel in order to go on. So it's kind of a challenge for some to understand how much to eat at each meal. If we nourish ourselves with the right foods for our constitution and for the season and for the qualities that are necessary for us, and we learn how to eat enough, then that should take us through to the next meal. And one thing that can really help is making sure you have enough protein in every meal. Proteins are super important. And it doesn't necessarily mean animal protein, but just some kind of genuine protein that is a major part of your meal. There's more to say about that, but I'm going to go on. Simplified eating. So that's a way of resetting your digestion, or doing dipan and pachana, meaning that not putting too many things on your plate, just keeping things very simple. Working with food combining, that's a great way of resetting your digestion. I'll show you later on some of the different ideas, and you'll have a whole chart that'll help you understand what good food combining is according to Ayurveda. But as soon as we start to associate foods that are intended to be eaten together and eliminate those that create digestive wars, we'll be doing digestive kindle, and we'll also be working on reducing toxins. Regularity is super important. Regularity in your meal times, regularity in your daily activities. This is really important according to Ayurveda, especially during seasonal change, and also during our day and time, or day and age, when there's so much irregularity with the weather and with schedules. So if you can establish regularity in your life, that'll be helpful for bringing balance, even outside of the food. Eating for your season, eating for your constitutional imbalance or for the qualities is really helpful for dipana and pachana. If you upgrade the quality of your food, which means eating organic when you can, eating local as much as possible, eating seasonable, diminishing the foods that you eat out of a package, or when you eat out or take out. So that's really upgrading the quality of your food. One of the instructions I received when I was a student of Ayurveda, well, I still am, but a formal student at the Ayurvedic Institute with Dr. Vasant Lad in New Mexico. One of our instructors often used the mantra, favor quality over quantity. So it's better to eat a smaller quantity of really good quality food rather than a larger quantity of not so good quality food. And by quality, this is also intended that the food is rich in vitality. Vitality you can equate to the word prana, rich in prana, which means that it's alive, which doesn't mean it's raw. It's been cooked in a way that your system can accept it, but it's you can tell what food is rich in prana. It's something that if you can't easily tell, that you can take a food, let's say like a conventional apple and an organic apple. Just looking at them, eating one and eating the other can help you get more fine-tuned to the vitality in food. Also, even like the attitude of the chef. I'm sure you've experienced this going to a restaurant, and even though the food looks good on the plate, when you taste it, something's off. Maybe it was the attitude of the chef who was angry or who doesn't like his job, and that energy goes into the food. So you pick up on that prana as well. So when we cook, it's good to bring joy into the kitchen and a delight or a pleasure, because what we do in the kitchen, cooking for ourselves, whatever we put into it, whether it be spices or oils or grains or whatever, also our energy that we put into it is important. Another thing that's good for Dipana and Pachana is eating what your body wants. Not so much what the mental wants or what your emotions want, but what does your body really crave for? When you're out and about all day, many activities, maybe even multitasking, you're stressed. What does your body want? Your body probably generally wants something grounding, something solid, something warm, something maybe oily or unctuous. Here again, I'm going back to those qualities I talked about this morning, is applying the opposite to bring balance, rather than eating chips or crackers or carrot sticks, things that are the opposite to what would bring balance. Foods that resemble my scatteredness or my ungroundedness are only going to increase those qualities in me. And then one of the last pieces of advice that I would share about this, Dipana and Pachana, is to know the right amounts to eat. Now, that's something that's not always easy, but I've learned through a colleague of mine, whose name is Mira Lewin, who has a center called Halipuri. She proposes honoring your burp. Now, what is your burp? You know, like if you've drunk too much beer, you make a burp. Well, this is kind of an exaggeration of something natural that happens on a daily basis at every time we eat. There is this natural reaction of the body that the body has had enough. And when it's had enough, it sends a signal. And that signal is in the form of a little bubble of air that comes up to the surface, kind of like a bubble of air coming up from a body of water. And it comes out in a little burp. We do it every day at every meal. But those of you who are saying that never happens to me, well, I invite you to practice a little more attention and mindfulness at your meals, because I guarantee you, once you notice it once, you won't forget it. And when you notice it in yourself, you'll also notice it in the people eating with you. They may not notice it, but you do. The thing is, when you honor this air that comes up and you stop eating at that point, you can balance most of your digestive imbalances just by honoring that signal from your body that says, I've had enough. We do this, and we've done this ever since we were babies. For those of you parents out there, or those of you who have been around kids or babies, when a mother gives a bottle or her breast to the baby and the baby's had enough, the baby burps. Or sometimes we have to burp the baby to get that burp to come up. But what happens if we give them more and it comes back up? They've had enough. And so we do something very similar to this in our adult life, but it's in more the form of a bubble of air. And when we honor this, we honor our natural urges or our natural signal from the body that says enough. What we do after is our choice. We can, even if we have half of our plate left, or there's one more piece of chocolate cake that's on the plate and you really want to eat it, afterwards, you all get to ask yourself that question. Well, what's in me that's driving me to eat more? Is it social habits? Is it my parents who always said, finish your plate? Is it because I want to pay homage or honor the person who's cooked the food? Maybe they'll judge me if I leave something on my plate. Another thing could be, oh, I don't want to waste food. But know that you can always put it aside for later, because anything that you continue to eat after that has a big chance of not being fully digested. So know that the more you go beyond your burp, the more chances you have of diminishing your digestive fires. It's like, consider your inner fire like a campfire. If you put too many logs on the fire, you're going to put the fire out. Same thing, the logs, food, too much food will put out the fires. And then when your system has to work more to create more fire, what does it do? It pulls energy from different systems, and those systems all of a sudden go limp, or they go, and you have no energy for them. So often people who have sluggish digestion or low digestive fire feel cold all the time. They have cold hands, cold feet. After a meal, the first thing they want to do is go and sleep. They need a coffee. So all of these are signs that digestion is low. So something to be to pay attention to. And it's better to eat less and eat again. And I'm not contradicting what I said earlier, but it's better for someone who has low digestive fire to have smaller meals with 4 or 5 hours between the two, or 4 hours, rather than a huge meal that completely shuts down their digestion. Hope I'm making sense. And if I'm not, you can write it in the chat. All right. One other thing that I want to talk about before we go on to some other recipes and other juicy things. Sometimes people ask themselves, am I supposed to eat for my type? So let's say I'm a Pitta person, am I supposed to eat for a Pitta individual, or do I need to eat for the season? What Ayurveda would say first and foremost, if there were an hierarchy to the order of which we to make our choices, first and foremost is to eat for the season. Because nature gives us what we need naturally each and every season. And even though what the spring offers in terms of tastes, and we're going to talk about tastes quite soon, one thing that comes up in the spring naturally is bitter greens, dandelion greens, greens like, or bitter salad greens, things like that, which are really good for cleansing the liver and cleansing the gallbladder. The bitter taste is especially important in spring. It's one of the tastes to favor. However, bitter taste is one of the cooling tastes. And let's say that you're an individual who is already cool by nature. If you eat too many bitter foods, you're going to create more cold in your body. So the point I'm trying to make here is that you need to understand how much of a good thing is good for you. So we eat for the season, but we always keep in mind what our constitution is. Even if the season says eat foods that are pungent in nature, pungent means spicy, but you're already spicy already. You're a spice girl like me. You have heat in the body. Well, you take that and you go back to the spectrum we were talking about, or the continuum. You look at hot, and you look at what is hot, what is hot, and what's warm. I'll give you an example. Really hot is chili peppers. Medium hot would be ginger, dried ginger. And less on the heat would be fresh ginger. I'll say that again. Really hot, chili peppers. Medium hot, dry ginger. And lightly or slightly hot would be fresh ginger. There's a difference between those two gingers. The dry ginger is more pungent or more heating. The fresh ginger is more oily and less heating. So if I want to apply eating something pungent in spring in order to eat with the season, I'm going to choose something that's, and I have heat in my body, I'm going to choose something that's on the low end of the scale of what is heating. Make sense? And I always keep in mind what my constitution is, what my baseline is. If I have an imbalance, for another example, I'm Pitta by nature, which means I have more tendencies to be hot. But let's say I'm experiencing cold extremities. So that's an imbalance. That's not what is normal for me. So I'm always going to take into consideration as I'm working with my cold, I don't have a cold, but feeling cold in my body. I'm always going to remember that my baseline state of naturalness is warmth. When I go to treat the cold, I'm going to treat it gently. And I may not only treat it through food. I might do some yoga. I might do some breathing. I might do things outside of the food realm that help me out. So when I work on my imbalance, I always keep in mind what is my baseline. Something else or other to keep in mind is what are the ancestral foods. In my lineage, everyone has their own lineage of foods that do them good. Now, this is what this means is that this kind of defies all the other rules. It could be that Ayurveda might say, well, for your constitution or for your state, don't eat this food because it's not good. However, it's something that's always felt good in your body. It's something that your mom made. It's something that your grandma made. It's a comfort food. It's something that really does you good. When you eat it, you know it brings you healing. So keep those foods in mind as well, even though it may not come from where you're living now. See if you can include those foods or remember those foods and try to eat them from time to time to help you maintain balance. One example is the breakfast a golden breakfast that has corn in it. I have Native American blood, and corn is one of the native foods of Native Americans. And anytime I eat corn, even though it's a drying and a heating grain, which normally wouldn't be good for my constitution, it does me good. And what I can do when I eat something that may not be 100% good for my constitution is I can always apply an antidote. Ayurveda is a magical system of applying antidotes. There may be foods that aren't beneficial for us in a certain state, let's say, as we find them in nature. But if I apply a cooking method, or if I apply an oil, or if I apply a certain spice, I can change the quality of the food and make it more acceptable for my system. Eating what's local is super important. I think that everyone does that, everyone who's here and present. Local is really important so that we get the bugs, and by bugs I mean we get the positive microorganisms in the soil that are helpful for our intestinal bugs. So really good for the microbiome, excuse me, the word's different in French, microbiome. So our intestinal health. And eating local has many benefits, and I think that you know that already. Eating fresh, eating whole. Whole doesn't mean eating something that hasn't been cooked or hasn't been transformed. We have to transform food in order for it to be beneficial for the system. But whole means eating foods that haven't been overly transformed, which could mean like eating, I'm going to take soy for an example, eating tempeh, which is the Indonesian way of preparing soy, which is whole soybeans that have been sprouted and put in a cake and that you eat hot, kind of like you eat tofu. That's a good way of eating soy. What's not good for soy is soy flour, soy oil, anything that you find already in a package, textured vegetable protein, cold soy, like soy yogurts, soy milk that's cold. All of these are ways of transforming soy that takes it too far away from its natural state, and the body doesn't recognize it in a way that's digestible. It hasn't been fermented, it hasn't been cooked. So that's just one example of something that's been transformed. Or even like wheat or a grain, grains that are ground into flour and then used in baking and then put in a package are less digestible than eating, let's say, a bowl of cooked quinoa or a bowl of cooked rice. That's going to be more in its whole form rather than refined. I guess that's a better word, refined, eating fewer refined foods. And then, of course, as much as we can, organic, non-sprayed, non-GMO food. Then there are two questions that you can always ask yourself, even if you don't know anything about Ayurveda, whether a food is good for you or not. You can ask yourself, can my body digest it? That's something that you might have to test over time, testing foods to see if your body can digest it. And the other thing would be, is it rich in vitality? Have I cooked this myself, or has someone else cooked it, put it in a package, and then I'm cooking it again? Is it rich in vitality? Is it rich in prana? And those two things, if your body can digest it, and if it's rich in vitality, you're going to do wonders for supporting your digestion. And then in anything that I'm sharing today, just remember that it's not a dogma. There are no rules. These are just suggestions and advice. And to not feel as though if you don't do things just as Michele suggests, that the police, the Ayurvedic police, are going to knock on your door and say, you aren't doing Ayurveda. Just know that we apply the rules, or we follow the rules when we can. We don't want to make these suggestions or these recommendations or this advice into something that's really hard, fast, and something that's an absolute. We need to be flexible. We need to go with the flow. We need to work with our circumstances. So when you can, follow the rules. When you can't, do what you can to antidote or to make something that may not be beneficial a little less harmful. And then you can always drink ginger tea. All right. So I talked a little bit about food combining. I'm not going to go through it a lot because our time is limited, but I just want to refer you to this document that you will have in the PDF that I'm going to share with you at the end of class, or I'll put it in the chat almost right away. This comes from Banyan Botanicals, and for those of you who want to go further, Banyan Botanicals is an Ayurvedic herbal company that has a plethora of educational resources, videos, articles about Ayurveda. So if you want to continue your education in a very informal way, you can learn a ton from Banyan Botanicals. And so they have a whole, they've created this nice list, and this is based on something that my Ayurvedic teacher, Dr. Vasant Lad, established, very visual on how we can better digest foods by respecting these laws or these rules or the suggestions when we can. So I'm not going to go through it now. You can do a look at it at your own time, but I just want to bring your attention to it. So it gives you all different kinds of ideas. The one thing, like I mentioned before, the really important thing is to remember to keep fruits separate from anything else. If you're just doing that, you'll do wonders for your digestion. Okay, so I think I've come to the end of this document. I'm going to close it and I'm going to share it right away in the chat, and that way everybody has it. Okay. Okay, so everyone should have the document in the chat within a couple seconds, and feel free to download that and use it as you go forward with in an Ayurvedic spirit. I'm going to take a moment and answer some questions in the chat. Someone enjoyed the golden breakfast cereal and made it more sweet than savory. Put cardamom and almond milk. This is great. Yes, using fewer of the savory spices and replacing them with more of the sweet spices. And by sweet spices, that would be like cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, even putting a little honey in, or some kind of natural sweetener. So that's a great, great idea. A little almond milk, or even milk, for those of you who eat dairy milk, would be good. I'm going to talk later as well about foods to favor and foods to avoid in the spring season. But one of the categories of food that resembles spring, so the qualities of heavy, of wet or damp, and cooling, those three qualities we'd like to diminish in springtime. Milk products have all of those qualities. So dairy products, cheese, yogurt, cream, all the milks. So those are things you want to decrease in the springtime. And it's kind of only normal that we do so because in the spring, those animals that give those milks are feeding their babies with the milk. And so there really isn't any extra. So we shouldn't be, well, not, there's no should or shouldn't, but it's a good idea to take a break during the year from those milks, with one exception. One animal's milk is actually beneficial in the spring because it's astringent and a little bit heating, and that's goat's milk. So out of all the dairy products, goat's milk or goat's milk products would be acceptable in the spring without creating too much of an imbalance. Another question, what about frozen foods? So frozen foods in Ayurveda, we're going to go back for a moment to the different qualities. Everything, the way that a food is stored takes on the qualities of its storage. And this might seem a little extreme, but you can take it as you want, and you can think of it in an idealistic way or more of a realistic way, depending on your circumstances. So I tend to be a perfectionist or an idealist. That's kind of my nature. That's very typical of Pitta. But I've learned to soften the edges and lighten up over time. But to answer that question, frozen foods, anything that's stored in a freezer, is going to take on the qualities of a freezer. So it's dark, it's damp, it's cold, it's static, it's what else? Anything that is associated with what you can think of in your mind to describe the qualities of a freezer. So the food is going to take on those qualities. Now, there's frozen food, and then there's frozen food. There's frozen food that might be frozen for a week, but there's frozen food that might be stored in the freezer for 6 months, 8 months, a year. So the longer it's in the freezer, the longer or the harder it's going to, or the longer it's going to take to digest. The shorter, the easier. We don't all live in an area that allows us to have fresh vegetables and fruits all year long. I'll take, for example, my family. I grew up, and my family still lives in South Dakota. It's in the middle of the United States in the Midwest, where there are 4 seasons. And notably, there's a very long winter where it's cold and nothing can be grown. And most of the produce, the fruits and vegetables in winter, get flown in from someplace else. So what to do? You either eat what you find in the grocery store, or you have the ability to grow a garden, which my parents do, and they have for ever since I can remember. And they can their own food and freeze their own food. Now that's different from buying something frozen industrially or growing your own food and freezing your own food. Something that you can do if you don't have a garden and you want to do that same thing. Well, when something's in season, you buy a little more of it, you freeze it, and that way you have it in the winter months when you can't find fresh produce. So Ayurveda isn't really for freezing food, but Ayurveda also gives us the flexibility of working with our situation. Some people don't have time to cook fresh every day, don't have access to shopping a couple times a week, or even maybe just once a week. So, just in terms of organization, they need to freeze food, which is fine. The idea is that we minimize it and we kind of use it accordingly. If you need to, great. Again, the Ayurvedic police is not going to knock on your door. But the idea is when we recook that frozen food, the idea is that we create some antidotes to the qualities of the frozen food. So, of course, warming it up slowly, using warming spices to help digest, maybe a little bit more oil, different things like that that help to digest that kind of food. And again, it's not a big no. It's not like you're not practicing Ayurveda if you eat frozen foods, but just know that it's not going to have the same vitality as food that is bought fresh and stored in the refrigerator. Sometimes I'm a meat eater, and I want to say that in passage, just that sometimes there's a misconception that Ayurveda is a vegetarian system. In fact, it's not. Although vegetarianism is promoted, meat is used for medicinal purposes. It's all about what one individual needs for strength, for their daily activities. Sometimes it's about a blood type. I'm blood type O, which is out of the blood types, more the meat eaters. And even though my spiritual path of nonviolence would recommend not eating meat, I need to eat meat from time to time for strength and for my health. I've tried being a vegetarian. It doesn't work. And it's not that I don't know how to balance grains and beans. It's not about that, but it's just that I get nourished from time to time with meat. So I have meat from time to time. And I live in a village. I don't have access every day to maybe organic meat. So sometimes I have to freeze it. And I'm still practicing Ayurveda. I feel I'm pretty healthy. But what do I do when I cook the meat? I add some cardamom. I add ginger. Even if the meat has been cooked or not, know that these two spices, cardamom helps with absorbability of protein, and ginger really helps the digestion in general of meats. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Excellent. A question about the golden breakfast coming back. Someone asked, there is no oil. Yes, there is oil in the, there's ghee, which is clarified butter. And the way that I showed the recipe this morning is that we dry toasted the corn and the spices and then added the water. And while you weren't looking, while you were having your lunch, I had my lunch and I put ghee, which is clarified butter, and a little olive oil in the dish. Another way of doing this recipe would be to slowly melt the oil or the ghee in the pan, then add the corn and the spices, then add the water. That's another way of making the dish. Just know that if I chose to show you the way I did this morning, it was kind of a seasonal adjustment, because not only is spring a low milk product time of year, it's also a low fat time of year. And I'll touch on that just a moment. The reason being is that it's the liver and the gallbladder that really do the work of digesting fats and oils and heavy oily food. And spring is their season of rest and renewal and detox. And so one of the best things we can do for our liver and gallbladder is to give them a rest from cooked oils and decrease our intake of oils in general. And I'm not saying to eliminate them, because oil is really, really important for our mental health. Our brain is made up of 75% fat. It's really important for stress. If you don't have enough fats in your diet, it can really create problems for the kidneys and the adrenals, which are the two organs that really take the brunt of stress. So if you want to better manage your stress levels and also better help your body to be more of a cushion against the stresses of our day, it's a good idea to have good fats in your diet, whatever the season may be. But in spring, we try not to cook with so many oils. And one way you can do that is by water sauteing or steam sauteing, which means instead of using oil to saute your vegetables, you would use a little bit of water, just a small amount, so that the vegetables don't stick. And then you would use a little bit of oil, or just save the oil for in the plate as kind of a seasoning. Hope I'm making sense about that. So it's important in the spring to give our gallbladder and our liver a little bit of rest, which will help to pacify sluggishness, digestive heaviness. And when we take out the fats or diminish the fats in our diet, it helps the body, it retrains the body to digest its own fats. It makes us better fat burners, which means that if we can better digest fats after a bit of a break in the spring, when the carbohydrates of summer come, and by carbohydrates, I mean like all of the fresh vegetables, and especially the fruits and the sugar in the fruits, that our body can better assimilate those foods without adversely affecting our sugar levels in the body. Hope that makes sense. That's something you can listen to again if you want to better understand. And while I'm on that topic, I'm just going to quickly share something with you. In the spring, we can benefit from eating foods that are cholagogues. Cholagogues. What are cholagogues? Cholagogues are foods that increase bile. Bile is what is produced in the liver and the gallbladder. And when we have good bile flow, that means our liver and gallbladder are working well, we can digest fats well, and also our intestinal health gets improved because it's bile that helps lubricate the intestines. So let me do another screen share. And here we have an idea of cholagogues. So these are foods that move bile efficiently. Someone just asked about turmeric. Yes, turmeric tea is very good in the spring because it's something that helps stimulate bile production. And we'll go in order here along the list. So can everyone see the screen okay? Yeah, you'll get this document, so don't worry. You can just listen and take it all in. So raw beets, and there's a recipe that I wanted to share with you, and you can do it on your own time, but I'll just talk you through it quickly because we're talking about things that benefit the liver. So this, I love my liver appetizer, is basically a beet salad, because beets are one of the best liver liver lovers. That's why I call it, I love my liver. And the word in English, liver, is live-er. It's an organ that wants to live. And so we can help it live by eating beets or beetroots. And so this is one of the exceptions to raw foods in the spring. When it starts to get warm out, everybody all of a sudden wants to eat raw foods. But just know that raw foods are always going to be more difficult to digest than cooked foods. And why? It's because they require more digestive flames or stronger digestion. So because your body needs to cook what has not been cooked. And so we can always help out our digestion by cooking foods. Tibetan medicine will tell you, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, that cooked foods are always going to be more digestible than raw foods, and that raw foods have their purpose, they have their place. It's not that these systems are against it. It's all about timing, and it's all about what our body can digest. So summer is a good time for raw foods. Later spring, but now we're still in a time of the year where it's too cold. And of course, there's a huge exception to this rule, or to this idea, is that those people who live in a tropical climate can allow themselves to eat raw food because their climate is more adapted to it. Okay, so let me come back to this I love my liver appetizer. So basically what it is grating a beet, grating a nice beet. And this recipe is for a beet about this size. I usually don't grate my beets or any of my vegetables if they're organic, because there's lots of good things in the skin. However, if you have gas, bloating, constipation, you might want to consider peeling your vegetables and fruits, because the skin is astringent, and astringent is one of the tastes that can be too cooling and too irritating for the system. So you basically grate a beet and you create kind of a vinaigrette over the top with an oil, olive oil, which is particularly good for the liver, flax or hemp oil, or any oil that's cold pressed, preferably. And then squeezing a little lemon or a little lime on the top. In the recipe I gave you, it might be a little too much, 1 tablespoon. You can gauge that for yourself. And along those lines, if you're not real keen on lemon or lime juice, or you can't access it, something that would be an alternative is using an essential oil of lemon or lime. Now you only need a little bit, like 1 drop, and just know that it's not the same. It tastes the same, but actually it's not juice, and it's the rinds and the zest of those citrus fruits. So actually really good for the system, but needs to be combined in a food. And then a little bit of salt, and that way we get more of the 6 tastes. So basically, when I make this salad, I try to find a recipient that's that I can grate into. I just grate my beet inside, and then put the lemon or lime over the top, the salt, the olive oil, and then I shake it up. And sometimes I make a quantity that will last me a day or 2. And then I keep it in the fridge. And when I'm ready, I take it out and take a tablespoon before my main meals as a way of stimulating liver and gallbladder. This is something that is easily digestible because it's a small quantity of raw. It's the fibers in the raw food here, the raw beet, have been softened with the oil and with the lemon. And if I'm not real keen on having something that's raw, it's also a salad or an appetizer that you can integrate into your plate, into something that's already cooked. Let's say you make yourself some lentils, kale, and some quinoa. Well, you can just mix this salad into something that's cooked, which will kind of cook it more. Some other things that you can add to this appetizer salad would be ground fennel seeds or coriander seeds, which are excellent, as we discussed this morning, for general digestive health, but also for the liver and gallbladder, or even turmeric or ginger in their fresh form, grated, excellent. So have fun with this one. It can also be a carrot, which is excellent. You could also apply the same idea, but not as an appetizer, to an apple, to use this kind of process to better digest an apple, but it would be used outside of a meal. Okay, one last thing about the beet. All foods that are red in color, like a beet, help to move the lymph in the body. And the springtime not only is liver and gallbladder season, but it's also lymph season. So eating foods that are red in color will help move the lymph. Okay, let's go back to our cholagogues. So apple, celery, fennel bulb, that's the vegetable. Artichokes are excellent for liver and gallbladder. You can even make a tea from artichokes. For example, if you're steaming the artichoke itself, you can cut off the stem, chop it into pieces, and put it in the water, the steaming water, along with a bay leaf. Excellent tea, and then you drink the water. It's almost even more beneficial than eating the artichoke itself. So in the spring, artichokes. Any green vegetable, especially leafy greens, because they're rich in chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is like the elixir or the blood of life, especially good for the liver and the gallbladder, also for the lymph. Fresh ginger root. And in passage here, I'm going to talk about ginger root because someone asked about ginger root, and maybe a concern because of its heating nature that it may not be good for people who have inflammation. Know that ginger is one of the best spices or one of the best foods for inflammation. It's anti-inflammatory. And just because something has a little warmth in it, and when we look at the word inflammatory, it suggests flames, it suggests heat. It doesn't mean that certain heating foods that are medicinal in nature are going to increase the flames or increase the heat. So ginger has substances inside that work on inflammation, bringing it down. According to Ayurveda, ginger is a universal remedy. It's kind of a grandma remedy. It's good for so many things. One exception would be if you're on blood thinners, it's not a spice that you want to use. Another thing that's beneficial in the spring is bitter salad leaves, endive, chicory, dandelion leaves. Go out in nature, they're all over. Lettuce, salad greens. Except I'll come back to dandelion. Maybe it doesn't grow in Tenerife. Might be a hard thing to find. Certain spices are good for the liver and gallbladder, especially cumin and coriander. Use those in the spring. Tea, cumin tea, or just coriander tea, or this cumin, coriander, fennel. Or maybe even include some coriander in your chai if you like to make chai. Fenugreek is an excellent bile stimulator. It helps to take cholesterol out of the blood and out of the bile, and increases bile acid by 4 times. In different ways you can use it. You can make fenugreek water. You take a tablespoon of fenugreek, put it in a jar, put a liter or a quart of water over the top, let it sit overnight on your counter, and the next morning drink the water. Excellent for reducing cholesterol and also for helping bile movement. And then what do you do with the fenugreek that has been, the seeds that have been sitting in the water overnight? You can either eat them just like that. You can include them in your cooking. Fenugreek is especially beneficial for bean or legume cooking. It helps reduce gas and flatulence. Or you can sprout those seeds that have been soaking overnight. You can also make a tea from fenugreek. Instead of the fenugreek water, you simply boil fenugreek seeds in water, like 1 teaspoon for 1 liter of water, and you make a tea out of it. And in that, on that note, let's take a look at the Rasa Tea that I put in the recipe booklet. And I won't walk you through, I'll just walk you through it because time is flying by, and I want to respect everyone's Sunday of rest. So the Rasa Tea is one that I'm suggesting, and this, as well as many of the recipes, come from a colleague of mine, my first Ayurvedic nutrition and cooking teacher, Amma Morningstar, and you have her website at the end of the recipe book, where you can order her books. She has some wonderful books, and notably, this tea comes from her latest book on delicious and nourishing recipes, healing drinks from the wisdom of Ayurveda. So Rasa is our lymph and plasma system. And according to Ayurveda, this is the system that gets nourished by what gets digested in our stomach. So our first tissue system that gets nourished. And so it's really important to keep our lymphatic system nourished and keep it moving. And this is one tea that will do the job. And when our lymph is moving in a healthy way, we have really strong immunity. So everyone in our day, in time, really to stay healthy is to keep our lymphatic system moving and well nourished. So in this tea, there's whole fenugreek seed, whole fennel seeds, peppermint leaves, but it can also be replaced by tulsi. We talked about that this morning, tulsi being holy basil, or even nettles. Now, nettles is like dandelion in some places of the world, especially in Europe and North America. It grows everywhere, and it's really a super food. We hear a lot of talk in our day and time about superfoods, and sometimes those superfoods come from millions of miles away. But no, we have a lot of superfoods really close to us, like dandelion and nettles. This recipe also calls for licorice root, which is often part of many herbal formulas in Ayurveda, in Chinese medicine, and also in Tibetan medicine. Just one thing to know with licorice root, if you have high blood pressure, it's something that you want to not take. And it's also something that's stimulating. So this tea may not be the best taken at night before you go to bed, but it all depends on how you react to licorice. Licorice is one of the one herb or one plant that's really good for softening irritated intestinal mucosa lining. And then the last ingredient would be fresh ginger root. So you can put all these spices together, all the dry spices, in a jar and have them ready for when you want to make the tea. And then when you make the tea, you would just simply add the fresh ginger root that you would either grate or chop. And so you bring all of that to a boil. You let it simmer over medium heat for about 10 minutes. Turn off the heat. And then for an added effect, for lots of fiber, but also for kind of a softening effect, would be to add flax seeds or chia seeds, which have a really lubricating effect on digestion. So that's one another tea to add to your spring list of teas that are beneficial. If you want to do a simplified version of this, simply use fenugreek seeds, fennel seed, and fresh ginger root, and you have all the instructions there. So enjoy making this tea. It's kind of like CCF, maybe not really expected the taste, but it's really pleasant. And so let's finish this list of cholagogues. And sorry, I forgot to put my face back on the screen. Rosemary, wasabi is really good. Anything that's yellow, like gentian or turmeric root. And then lots of herbal bitters. These are more bitters that come from Europe and North America, but gentian root, dandelion root, barberry root, milk thistle. These are all things that help to decongest your bile, help to increase bile flow. They scrub the inside of your intestine, and they help to decrease liver heat. So I will put that straight in the chat. How's everyone doing? Okay? Yay, no one's falling asleep. I'm going to put that in the chat so that you all have it. All right. One moment. Hop. There you go. Okay. And then there was one more question. Any alternatives for a post-digestive tea to follow lunch besides CCF tea? Rasa tea that I just shared, ginger tea, fennel tea, just simple fennel. Even chewing on fennel seeds is helpful for digestion, especially people who are attracted to sweets, have a sweet tooth, and they want to avoid sugar or desserts. Chewing on fennel seeds or cardamom pods at the end of a meal are good. So those are a couple of suggestions. Any herbal tea, chamomile tea, peppermint tea, bitter root tea like chicory or orzo. Orzo is what Italians sometimes drink instead of a decaf or a coffee. It's roasted barley that's ground up and made into a drink. So that's really helpful for digestion. What's helpful at the end of the meal for digestion is something that's a little bitter. That helps with sweet cravings, but also helps with digestion. And on that note, Ayurveda is not 100% against chocolate, especially when it's really dark and bitter, because the bitter helps digestion. However, it's a food that we might want to avoid in the spring, especially if we're looking to detox and also to work on the liver, because chocolate can be very, very hard on the liver. And that's all I'll say about that. If you have any other questions, please put them in the chat. And now I want to talk a little bit about the tastes, because one question that has come up is, well, how do I know if a food is heating or cooling? And I don't really have a list to offer you. I have more, a little bit of instruction about tastes, because Ayurveda distinguishes between the different qualities, the heating or cooling qualities, which I'll call the thermal qualities of the tastes. Out of the 6 tastes, we have sweet, sour, and salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. Out of these 3 tastes, and I'll repeat them again to make sure everyone got them: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. So 3 of these correspond, or I guess we can divide these into 3 and 3. So there are 3 that are heating, 3 that are cooling. There are also 3 that benefit each constitution and 3 that don't benefit. So there are 3 we can favor for a constitution or a type, and 3 that should be avoided. Now, when I say favor and avoid, it doesn't mean always and never. That's something very important to understand. Because when people say, oh, I have to avoid this, sometimes they just avoid it altogether. But the idea is that we favor, meaning we eat more or bigger quantities of favor and reduce the quantity. We don't leave out all 6 tastes or one of the 6 tastes, because we need all of them in order to have optimal digestion. So what I'd like to do is to play a game with you, or have you get involved a little bit. And I have on this plate here, and hopefully you can see it. If not, I'll tell you what's on the plate. But I have some different examples of foods with different tastes. And we're going to try to all together figure out what the different tastes are. So if things aren't clear, I'll just make a quick round the plate and let you know what the different foods are. So here we have 3 beans: mung beans, whole mung beans, split mung beans, otherwise known as mung dal, and coral lentils. This is coconut, coffee, a black olive, coriander, cilantro, which is in English we cilantro, garlic, pomegranate, fresh ginger, fresh turmeric, black tea, salt, sugar, fennel seeds, cumin seeds, black pepper, a prune, or dried plum, prune, basmati rice, and oats. And so what I've tried to do here, and these two didn't fit on the plate. I also have a lime. I also have a lemon. And I have 2 bananas. Okay, so first of all, let's start with the sweet taste. On this plate, what is represented by sweet? And feel free to put it in the chat. That way I can see that you're not sleeping and that you're participating. So feel free to chat away. What on this plate is of the sweet taste? Now, keep in mind, there are some things that are really pure sweet and other a little more subtle. I think everyone will agree that the sugar is sweet. And Jamyang already has 10 points. Banana and prune are all sweet. Coconut, yes, also sweet. Now, coming back to banana, which of the 2 bananas are we going to include in the sweet? The green or the yellow? Yellow, yay, Glenn gets 10 points. So there's a difference here. And the reason I brought in the green banana today is that often it's often difficult for people to distinguish or define foods that fall in the category of astringent. And it's difficult. Well, what's astringent like in the mouth? Well, remember eating a green banana, a banana that's not ripe. What does it do in the mouth? Makes us pucker. So astringent foods are foods that soak up excess moisture, soak up fluids. They make us pucker. And so a green banana would be considered astringent. And we'll come back to astringent afterwards. So did we find everything on the plate that was sweet? So coconut, rice, yes. Good job, Magali. Rice, most grains are considered to be sweet. There are some exceptions like amaranth or quinoa. They're more bitter and astringent, but rice, definitely sweet. Oatmeal as well is sweet. Anything else that's sweet? No, I think we covered all of that. Sour, what's sour? Oh, before you answer sour, I meant to say that I would tell you along the way what's heating, what's cooling. So in your opinion, is the sweet taste cooling or heating? I'll give you a little hint. There are 2 elements that come together to create the tastes, and earth and water come together to create the sweet taste. So in your opinion, is the sweet taste heating or cooling? Oh, everyone's losing points except for Magali. Yay, she gets 10 more points. It's cooling. The sweet taste is cooling. Now, when we talk about cooling, that's not the only quality it has. The sweet taste is also heavy and moistening. So it's a taste that we favor in the winter for its building qualities. And then it comes back again in the summer, but it's a taste that we want to diminish in the spring because it resembles spring. And it's like I mentioned this morning, when we change from one season to the next, especially from winter to spring, we want to decrease the foods that we ate in abundance in the winter. And we ate in the winter a lot of things that were sweet in nature: bananas, dried fruits, sweet potatoes, squash, things like that. Okay, now on to the sour taste. I don't have many sour things on the plate, but there are at least two. And they are, anybody? It's off the plate. Off the plate. Lemon and lime are the sour fruits, or the sour things on the plate. And the sour also came in this morning in the grapefruit. Other sour tastes could be the olive. Olives are said to be sour, but they're also they also can be bitter. Other things that are sour would be strawberries, fermented foods like soy sauce, yogurt, pickles, alcohol, vinegar, sauerkraut, and also sour dairy products like yogurt, sour cream. Tamarind is also sour. So those are all sour, and sour is made up of two elements of earth and fire. So is sour heating or cooling? That's a no-brainer, right? So sour is heating. On to the next taste, salty. What is represented by salty on the plate? Okay, so there's salt, yes. How about the olive? Could we say that this olive is salty? Yes, we can. There are only two salty things. I didn't have access to chips or pickles or nuts. So all of those things are salty. Seaweed, kelp, sea vegetables, watery vegetables like zucchini, cucumbers, tomatoes are all salty. And salty, the salty taste is made up of water and fire. So salty, is it heating or cooling? Yes, it's heating. So out of the three tastes I've talked about so far, sweet, sour, and salty, we have sour and salty, which are heating. Now, again, there are going to be tastes that are more heating than others. And we'll talk about that more. The next taste is pungent. What on the plate is pungent? There's only one thing. What's pungent on the plate? It's a garlic clove. Garlic, yay, Glenn. So garlic, ginger, another one, ginger. Also, there are three, garlic, ginger, and turmeric. Now, turmeric is, again, an anti-inflammatory spice or vegetable, if you want. But it's also, so it's pungent, but it's also bitter and astringent. And bitter and astringent being two tastes that are cooling, it helps to balance out the turmeric. So we can't put turmeric on the same level as chili peppers in terms of its pungency, but know that it has a pungent nature to it. So pungent is made up of fire and air, so it's heating. And some examples are garlic, ginger, hing, or the asafoetida I showed you this morning, onions, radish, peppers, cayenne pepper, and raw garlic and raw onion, leeks, shallots. Those vegetables that I just mentioned are more pungent in their raw stage. When you cook them, they become a little sweet. But just know that a taste that is inherent to a vegetable or a fruit or any kind of food substance, even though it's been transformed by cooking, will always have some degree of pungency or whatever taste is predominant. Now we have bitter. Is there anything on this plate that is bitter in nature? Oh, I forgot one thing, sorry. Black pepper is also pungent. What is bitter on the plate? Coffee, tea, yes. Now that's coffee and tea without sugar. Anything else? Olives are also considered to be bitter, especially when they're green olives. And olive oil is bitter. I think if you've just taken a teaspoonful of olive oil at some point without putting anything else with it, it kind of scrapes the throat. And that's typical of something that's bitter. Turmeric is also bitter. Endives, lettuce, leafy greens, kale, spinach, dandelion greens. Bitter melon, for those people who come from Asia, bitter melon or Kerala is excellent for the bitter taste. Most medicines are bitter. Radicchio for the Italians is bitter. Aloe vera is also bitter. And bitter is cooling. It's made up of the creation of air and ether elements. And now the last taste is the astringent taste. And we said that a green banana is astringent, a green apple is astringent. And there are some things on this plate that are astringent as well. Cumin, pomegranate, yes. How about these things here, the beans? All beans are astringent. Some have a little bit of sweet taste, but most beans are astringent. And astringent is air and earth elements combined and cooling in nature. So this kind of gives us indication as to why many people avoid legumes or beans because of their astringent nature, because they're cold and they're drying. And the cold and the drying can create gas and flatulence and bloating. And that's all associated with the astringent taste. Other things that are astringent is coffee and tea. Anything that has tannins in it. By tannins, like think about wine, not so much alcohol, but especially wine as rich in tannins. And foods that are rich in tannins tend to be astringent. Also, rhubarb, pears, broccoli, asparagus, green beans, certain grains like quinoa, amaranth, buckwheat. Those are all those are all foods that are astringent in nature. So coming back to our heating and cooling. So if we know the taste of a food, then we can determine whether it's heating or cooling, warm or hot. And then we can make our choices accordingly. Now, if we don't know how to choose the cooling or the heating or what has which taste in it or not, something that we can do is look at the season, look at what nature brings us in the season. In the summer, nature provides us with foods that are cooling. So if you eat locally, if you eat in season, you'll be choosing foods that are cooling in nature. The things that nature gives us for the winter are going to be more warming. Also, if we eat according to our type or the type of the season, there are also lists that exist. And just to quickly mention that, but I can send you the list if you're interested. In general, an individual, let's use kapha because we're in kapha season. So an individual who is more of a kapha type, earth and water, is going to be have tendency to be more on the cold side. So that individual could benefit from eating, and just like everybody in spring, foods that are more warming. And so there exists lists of categories of food like fruits, vegetables, spices that are to be avoided and to be favored. And if we choose out of that list the foods that are to be favored, then we'll be choosing foods that are more warming in nature, because the list is tailored to the individual who is has tendency to be cold. Now, for an individual who's more on the hot side, they could follow the list of foods in the favor column, which would be more cooling foods. And again, that's something to be explored a little bit more in detail. Hard to kind of do a resume of that, but really the surefire way for you to understand if a food is heating or cooling is just to observe the effects on your body. If you're eating foods that are hot in nature, you're going to feel hot temperature wise. If you're eating too many hot foods, you might get constipated, because heating foods are also drying foods. Your skin might start to be dry. You might start to have dry humor, meaning that you're telling jokes that aren't very funny. So that's just one thing. Or you're eating foods that are too cooling in nature. All of a sudden you feel cold, you need to put a jacket on. That's just one way of using your body as your own pharmacy or your own laboratory of experience, using really your experience as to tell you what's heating or what's cooling. Okay. Someone asked what elements are with the bitter taste, what are with the sweet taste. I'll recapitulate and then also send you a document. So sweet taste, earth and water. Sour taste, earth and fire. So for there to be fire in a taste, there needs to be, if there's warmth in a taste, there needs to be fire. Salty, think about the ocean. When the ocean dries up, we have salt. So water and fire are the salty taste. Pungent is fire and air. Bitter, air and ether, or space. Ether and space are interchangeable. And astringent is air and earth. Okay, and speaking of those tastes, I want to tell you about the importance of having all of the tastes in a meal, and especially at our major meals of the day. And rather than going and finding a specific food for each of the tastes, Ayurveda recommends using spices. And that's why we find so many spices in Ayurvedic cooking. It's to fit the needs of all of the different digestive phases. So fitting all of the tastes. And if we don't have the specific foods that have the specific tastes, or our meal is cooling and we want to create warmth, well, we can add warming spices. Now, in the springtime, which is damp and cold and heavy, we want to use qualities that are the opposite. So the spring tastes to favor are pungent, bitter, and astringent. Pungent, bitter, and astringent. Why? Pungent warms the body. It helps to melt the mucus, helps to melt the snow. Bitter and astringent work very closely together. Bitter and astringent help to wring out the excess water. It helps to diminish the earth and water qualities, meaning getting kapha, extra kapha out of the body. It helps to clear mucus, helps to get rid of extra moisture. Bitter and astringent also dry up the body and help to lighten the body. So including bitter and astringent is good. What we want to reduce in terms of tastes are the tastes that were predominant in winter, which is sweet, sour, and salty. These tastes are building in nature. In the spring, we want to reduce. We talked about detoxing and getting rid of excess, renewing, feeling light, having better digestion. So think about sweet, sour, and salty resembling spring. And so we want to diminish those. Now, this morning we used the sour taste in our springtime slimmer drink with the grapefruit. We also used citrus in our appetizer. And I'm not saying that these are to be avoided or this was wrong, but the quantity we use is very minimal. And we're not making a whole meal out of lime or lemon, but we need to include a little bit of those tastes in order to enhance digestion. And know that the sour taste, the liver benefits from the sour taste. Okay, what else do I have in store for you this afternoon? Time is running. How much time do we have left? 45 minutes? Is that right? Or 15 minutes? I don't know. Someone's asking me 15 minutes. Okay. So is chili heating or cooling? What do you think? Chili peppers, heating, yes. Someone's asking, are the elements air, space interchangeable with wood and metal in the Chinese system? I think so. I'm less familiar with the Chinese system. It's true that I just started an herbal program that includes Chinese medicine, and so I'll learn more, but I think you're right in saying that it corresponds with wood and metal. Definitely. Okay. I did have another recipe that I wanted to share with you. I'm not going to have time, but maybe I can walk you through it, and that way you'll be motivated to make it on your own, because it's a special recipe for detox. And if you can, if I walk you through the steps, instead of showing you, because it'll take too much time and I want to honor our time together. But this, you can take out the recipe or find the page. It's called Sprouted Mung Bean Detox Soup. Now, why this soup? It's because mung beans, which is this little green pulse. So the word pulse or legume or dried bean are all interchangeable. So this little bean is a miracle or a magical bean according to Ayurveda. It's a bean that's low in fat and helps to burn fat. And in fact, the whole category of beans, of legumes or dried beans, is very beneficial in reducing fat in the body. They're very rich in soluble fiber, which means that fibers help digestion quite a bit, but also fiber is a way of moving bile through the system. So fibers or bile hooks onto fibers and helps eliminate excess in the digestive tract, especially in the intestines. This little bean, mung bean, is tridoshic, so it's good for all of the doshas. It's very rich in magnesium. It has a low glycemic index, so people who are working with blood sugar levels, this is excellent. All beans, but especially this little mung bean, are really rich in the satisfaction hormone, which means that when you eat beans, it gives you a sense of satisfaction. It gives a sense of being full. And so really important when you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to detox is to have this sense of satisfaction. And also for vegetarians, really important to make sure that you get enough protein in your diet, protein that's digestible. So these beans help to balance weight. They work on the liver. They're really quick to cook, especially when you've soaked them and you've sprouted them. And they're the easiest bean of all to digest. Actually, Ayurveda touts them as the anti-gas and flatulent bean. So for individuals who avoid legumes because they're afraid of not digesting them, do know that this has to be the easiest legume to digest. So this recipe that I'm offering might seem complicated because there are 5 steps to it. But once you do it, you'll see that it's very easy. And it's the steps that are included in advance that are really going to help with the digestion. So the more you do in the preparation, the less energy it'll take to digest. So I'm offering this recipe as well because it's a really good base for doing a mono fast or a mono diet, where you would just take 1 day or 2 days or 3 days and just eat this. Ayurveda isn't really for juice fasting or water fasting unless you're really strong for it. So it gives dishes, gives recipes so that you can nourish your system, but not overtax your digestion. So the things with this recipe that make it so digestible, the first thing is to soak your beans or soak your legumes. When I say bean, I mean legume, I mean dried bean, I mean pulse. So even if you buy a package of lentils and it says no need to soak, forget that. The holistic nutrition wisdom says soak all of your legumes and beans, because this helps to liberate anti-nutrients in the beans that prevent us from getting the protein or the good things that are in beans. If we don't soak our beans and we just cook them right away, they're more difficult to digest. So soak when you can, if you can, minimum 8 hours. If you can't soak your beans and you want to make beans for lunch, pour hot water over them, let them sit for an hour if you can, rinse them, and then start the cooking process. At least it'll be more digestible. But if you can, soak your beans overnight. The next thing to do would be to sprout your beans. And these are sprouted mung beans. I hope you can see them. If you don't have a sprouter at home or a sprouting mechanism, you can soak them overnight and then put them in a strainer like this and put them in a recipient and cover them with a towel, a kitchen towel. And the idea is that you rinse them twice a day. Another idea would be to put the beans, just doing this to show you, in a jar and cover the jar with cheesecloth or some kind of fine cloth. And then you turn the jar upside down and you put it in a bowl and have it at a diagonal, and then let the beans sprout in this way. That's just another alternative. I've described everything in the recipe, so please do take the time to read. So these little beans are ready to eat just like this, really packed with protein, or we can cook them into a soup. And so this soup is delicious. It's versatile, meaning you can use other beans like adzuki beans, little beans like this that are red in color. They have very similar properties. So the recipe is, once you've sprouted the beans, and the beans will be ready for use. And this is kind of the general rule with beans in general, sprouting. So when the little tail, hopefully you can see the tail, is twice the size of the bean itself, that means it's sprouted enough. And even just the slightest little sprout that comes out, it's okay to use. So the idea is you're going to cook these beans in water or in a broth, like vegetable broth, or even meat broth if you use meat broth, or even like a tea, like I mentioned this morning, that the CCF tea is a great base for cooking. Once you've cooked them in the water, then you're going to blend up the beans and their cooking water, which makes kind of a puree. Put that aside. Then the next step is to take vegetables, seasonal vegetables, and make and cook those vegetables along with spices. Now in Ayurveda, there's a technique that I wanted to show you today, but I think we'll have to save it for another cooking workshop. It's a technique called tempering, and the Sanskrit word is vagar. We take oil, here would probably be ghee or coconut oil or sesame oil that we heat, and then we put the spices in and let the spices come to life. And why do we do this? It's because enlivening the spices in oil helps to wake them up. Otherwise, spices are a little bit sleepy or dormant, and we heat them to increase their digestibility, but also to open up and wake up the volatile oils that are in the spices. So in this process of heating the oils, we bring them to life. We help with digestion, and the oil or the ghee that's used in the heating serves as a transport of not only the spices, but everything else that's cooked with them. And then once the spices start to dance and come alive, then we put in the vegetables, pour some water over the top, and you have all of the quantities in the recipe, and cook until the vegetables are almost soft, at which point we put in the puree, the mung bean puree, mix it all together, and voila, there's our medicinal soup. So this is a very nourishing and very healing dish that I encourage you all to make. I've given some references at the end of our recipe book where you can find these ingredients, especially the mung beans if you can't find them in your local organic store. Often easy to find them online. In Asia, super easy to find. But know that you can substitute with lentils if you can't find mung beans or aduki beans. We can talk more about sprouting and soaking and different things like that when we meet again, which is something I hope that we can do. And the last recipe that I wanted to mention is a 3 pungent spice mix called Trikatu. Tri means 3 and Katu means pungent. And I wanted to show you this because it's an excellent spice mixture to use in the springtime because of its pungent qualities. It includes black peppercorns, dried ginger, and this spice, which my Ayurvedic teacher, Dr. Ladd, used to call rat turds. Looking like rat turds, but it's called pipali. Pipali is Indian long pepper, and it's a spice that is specific for lung health. If you have excess mucus in your lungs or lots of mucus in your system, congestion, sluggish digestion, poor circulation, think about pipali. And this mixture of these 3 spices, so black pepper, ginger, and pipali, when they're mixed together, can be used whenever you're having soy products, which are very damp and cooling, mainly to be avoided in the spring, any kind of dairy, milk products, but also if you have a cold or congestion, this spice can be mixed with honey and just licked right off of a spoon. Kids love it. Give it to children who have colds and coughs and congestion. Big kids like it too. And it's also an antidote. I talked a little bit about how Ayurveda antidotes, and we'll have to have a special session only on spices because there are so many virtues in spices. But know in the springtime that you can use all the spices under the rainbow because they're all going to have a little bit of warming quality, but they're all help to benefit your digestion. So Trikatu, this is not only an antidote for dairy and for soy, but also for wheat. Wheat, along with most glutinous grains, so grains containing gluten, should be avoided in the springtime because they're very damp and very heavy. In the spring, try to favor non-glutinous grains, such as quinoa, amaranth, millet, buckwheat, rice. These are all good grains to favor in the springtime. And one last antidote that Trikatu is beneficial for is avocados. Avocados being cold and damp and heavy, to be avoided or diminished in the spring. Keep them for other months of the year as we try to favor as much as possible foods that are light, that are warming, that are easy to digest, that have the tastes of bitter, pungent, and astringent. I think that if I give you more, you're going to get indigestion. So I'll stop here. I'd like to just look at the chat to make sure I've covered all the questions. Someone asked about sleep problems, particular diet for sleep problems. Oh, that's a whole big subject, but eating lighter at night helps a lot with sleep problems. Having a warm milk before going to bed, and it doesn't have to be animal milk, but cow's milk is very good for insomnia, for sleep problems. But there's a nice recipe called golden milk or moon milk. I'm happy to share a recipe, but it's basically the milk of your choice, whether it be animal milk or vegetable, what do we call a grain milk, like rice milk or oat milk, something like that, with turmeric, with ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is a superfood according to Ayurveda. It's a root that's in a form of a powder. It's what we call an adaptogenic herb. An adaptogenic herb is a plant or an herb that serves two functions: one, to give energy when taken in the morning, and at night it induces sleep. So this is a true definition of what an adaptogenic herb is, and Ayurveda considers ashwagandha to be one that can be taken by mainly everybody. There aren't really any contraindications for it, but a milk before going to bed with ashwagandha, with turmeric, with a little bit of ginger, excellent for sleep. Okay. Another question. Many beans make you fart a lot, which means gas and flatulence and bloating. Mung beans normally don't produce gas and flatulence, especially when they're prepared in the way that I mentioned, by soaking and sprouting. The one thing that creates a lot of digestion imbalances for most people is improper food combining, especially around beans. Often beans get mixed with cheese or with eggs, or one has a fabulous balanced meal, eating everything according to the food combining suggestions, and then they finish the meal with a chocolate mousse or a banana or something that's really sweet. Well, they blame the beans, but they never blame the chocolate. They never blame the banana. So food combining is really important when it comes to delicate foods that can create problems, the troublemakers like beans. So it's important to prepare them well, to spice them well. And in the recipe booklet, I gave some ideas for spices that are particularly interesting or important when you cook your legumes. Try to get some hing, which is excellent. Another good spice for sleeping, hing. So those are just some ideas. So thank you everybody for your time. Thank you Jamyang, thank you Shangshung UK for inviting me to teach. It was really a joy and a pleasure for me. I'm sorry, I planned too much and we didn't have time for everything, but hopefully we'll meet again and we'll just pick up where we left off.
Thank you, Michele, and thank you for preparing so well and for allowing us to have all these PDFs as well to go back to. And definitely we'd like to invite you back. We can think a bit about next topics. It'd be great to have you again. And thank you everybody for attending. We have recorded this. Then the technical people will do editing and chopping a bit, but we'll send you the raw files quite soon. And if you need any of the PDFs, maybe I can send them all out, all the information Michele gave us today as well. We can group them all in one email and send it so we have everything in one place. And thank you so much again, Michele, and thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you, everybody. Can we open up the microphones to exchange just a minute?
Yeah, do I need to press something? Let me see.
Also, if you please, for those who want to have some resources in English to further your education until we meet again, to kind of feed this curiosity, do look at the online educational resources. Banyan Botanicals, the Ayurvedic Institute, which is Dr. Vasant Lad's institute, who is really the founder of Ayurveda in the West, who was my root teacher of Ayurveda. Also Life Spa, which is www.lifespa.com, which is Dr. John Douillard's site. All of these sites have huge amounts of educational materials, videos and articles. So lots of resources out there, all in English. So for those of you who are not native speakers, you get to work on your English a little bit. And then also some books from my colleagues, I highly recommend. And I myself offer monthly workshops on yoga and cooking for Ayurveda, but for the moment they're in French. But if there's enough interest, I'll do them in the future in English.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. That's been great.
Thank you, Michele. Thank you.
Grazie. Grazie, Michele.
Nice to see you, Massimo.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.